Hello and welcome to Cut and Splice. My name is Gil,
This is Jason.
And this is Matt.
and the movie we're talking about today is Arrival. I have a bit of a history with this movie, at least when it came out. I had a very strong reaction to it, only then to realize after the fact that the reaction was misplaced, or at least that my understanding of the movie was incorrect, big time. And I've always found that reaction to be an interesting one, and I thought it was one of those movies that I always wanted to rewatch so we can revisit what that was and what the movie is and discuss it in more detail. And here we are. So, what was your guys' impression revisiting the movie since you've last seen it?
I hadn't seen it since I was pretty young. I think it was on television or something. And I just, I don't know. I remembered very little of it at first. And then I just remembered it was very much like Contact, only possibly better.
Very young.
It came out 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Oh, did you guys watch the Denny movie? Oh, I watched the 1996 Charlie Sheen movie by David Twohy, The Arrival.
oh. Okay.
What are you talking about?
You've never seen The Arrival, Charlie Sheen? They made a sequel.
It is the same runtime, so I can see how that could be confusing.
I'm just kidding. I knew which movie we were supposed to be watching.
Yeah, no, I had a feeling, I had a sense there, but I am gonna. It's pretty surprising that it's almost the exact same runtime.
If you have a lazy day with a hangover or something like that, you should check it out. It's a pretty decent movie. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, I don't remember when if I the circumstances of seeing this movie other than I saw it in theaters. Obviously, I am talking about the movie Arrival, not The Arrival. And I just I have not seen it since the theater when I first saw it, probably opening weekend, I think. And I just watched it I just finished it about 15 minutes ago.
Very insightful. Also very funny. Now I actually hadn't seen it since theaters myself. My first impression, all I can say is it was one of those things that, like, initially mind blown, and then I stopped thinking about it like 15 minutes later, which is kind of a weird phenomenon, and but it was definitely worth looking at again. And I love how it deals with language. And actually, all joking aside, there are some serious parallels between Arrival and Contact in that whole process of communicating with extraterrestrial life. Only in Contact, it was mathematics, whereas in this, it's more about symbology. And I actually think that Arrival delved a little bit deeper into it. Also, with the whole idea that there's a transcendence of time and space that's introduced basically from the beginning. That's not a spoiler. Right? That was basically there in the first like 20 minutes of the movie. Yeah, I think that it's a good example of pure science fiction, in that this isn't sci-fi fantasy. This isn't fantasy. This is science fiction. You're living in a universe that could seriously exist, and you're dealing with entities that could seriously exist. and the conflict and the story are all built around realistic, plausible situations, no matter how far-fetched they may be. So no matter how I feel about the end result, I think that we should all respect the movie for at least standing up to that principle and being a true piece of science fiction.
Yeah, and I think that it's definitely one of those movies where you feel like Denis hits his stride. It does feel like because the movie before that was it Prisoners that he did before?
Good question. I can look right now.
Or Enemy. He had Enemy after Prisoners. Oh, he had the Sicario was right before. Never mind. And that was like a in a way he hit a stride with Sicario, but it felt like Sicario was if anything slight departure in a way. Not really because he didn't establish himself as a sci-fi guy until really Arrival and then Blade Runner and now with Dune. But what the writer of the movie told a story when he sold the script. He said how all the studios kept giving him the same feedback. They said, "Well, this is really good and it's really sophisticated, but it'll be tough to pull off. Like you really need to pull this off well to make it work." And he was like, "Well, yeah, it's a." And the thing is, but I think what they're saying is that there's not too many filmmakers in this world that can pull it off. Like you basically have a short list of, like Spielberg can take a script like from a writer and just make it amazing. And Nolan doesn't really take scripts from other people, and Denis was the up and coming guy. So and they tapped him because they realized, oh yeah, there's that guy. Fincher also doesn't really do big budget stuff and science fiction stuff really. So it's a very short list of people that you really feel could have pulled off this movie. And you see it in the movie, like moment to moment, very much like Sicario. You continue that very methodical, very deliberate pace, but not too slow. And it's just almost enigmatic. It just really, really works, and that's why the movie is enchanting. Everything about it, because there's so much sophistication to the concept of using language, learning a new language, and then language impacts perception of time. All these things, very cool stuff. But if it's not done right, it could have been The Arrival, or I'm not sure, or any.
Unfair.
No, but not that I've seen The Arrival, so I shouldn't but in any case, no, but it's very, very easy to like mess up a high concept movie like this, and even though it's got its flaws, it's not perfect, and we'll get to that. It's just really well done in the right hands, which is where it was at. So overall, it's definitely anybody who hasn't seen it by now should definitely go back and watch it. If nothing else, just for filmmaking wise, it's just it's just stellar filmmaking, and for the rest of it, which we'll get into, as far as it's very sophisticated science fiction, and there's not too many of those movies, and especially not big movies. And the funny thing, I looked at the budget for this movie was like 40 million or something, which is ridiculous considering like what it's there's not a lot of special effects in the movie or action, but yeah, it's like 47 million. But that was probably the other condition, is they said you got to do, if you're going to make this movie, it's got to be on the cheap, because like they were afraid it wouldn't make the money back. It's an original script. And
Actually, I mean, you can say that there aren't a lot of special effects, but I mean, just the way that they played with gravity, that's not easy to do.
Talking about special effects, just throwing this out there, I just got done watching the credits, and apparently the heptapods are stop motion, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, that's
I was actually unaware of that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's
I mean,
also really
I doubt
impressive.
they were all stop motion. I'm sure the hands, like the little, when they're putting their hands on the glass and they're making the little ink and stuff, that's probably very, CGI. But
Yeah.
um, as soon
I'm
as you
sorry if I
said,
talked to.
as soon as you said how much it costs, I suddenly wanted to look and see. Yeah, so pretty successful movie then. 47 million, like you said, for the budget. Who knows how much they put into marketing, but looks like the domestic gross was over 100. So pretty great.
Yeah.
Worldwide over 200.
Yeah, no, I think that was the movie that basically catapulted him to sort of like a Spielberg Nolan-esque stratosphere of like basically do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Blade Runner
It
sequel.
was his blank check.
Dune. It's like so he's gonna do all the sci-fi movies that he always wanted to make.
Yeah. Right.
Probably.
Go ahead and do Dune. Hopefully you'll get it right this time.
Yeah,
But,
no, and
yeah,
I
Fingers
kind of I have a
crossed, praying
feeling
about it every night.
I know what Dune's gonna be, and I don't know if I'll still be disappointed by it, but it's basically gonna be like Arrival and like Blade Runner, moment to moment, scene to scene. It's because he is as good as Spielberg and Nolan. It's gonna look great. It's gonna feel great. The acting is gonna be great. Whether the masses, like whether the overall thing has more to it, that's the trickier part, especially if he's doing a portion of a book and not telling the whole story. But it's gonna be a good experience, like a good watching experience. That's the thing. There's something about at least those three guys, and Fincher I feel like is in that category too. They'll shoot someone looking through the phone book and it'll be interesting. They can't shoot a bad scene. They just know how to put scenes together.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So before we get too deep into it, and before Gil explains his thoughts that about this movie, I just wanted to say the reason why, well, let's say one of the big reasons why I was excited about watching this movie again and then talking about it has to do with what Gil um, talks about. Specifically because I don't know if we saw this movie together or not. I kind of doubt it. But I know that after seeing this movie, I more or less felt like it was pretty great. And I was just so, I can tell you that for sure, because this is how I just felt right now when I finished watching it, that even a second time, that when the movie was done, I just sort of let it kind of wash over me and was just trying to really kind of comprehend everything that it was and was trying to say and trying to be. And I don't think I had gotten too deep into really taking it apart in my head and really thinking that much about it. I was just sort of trying to get it all. And I think that's right around the time I spoke to Gil and he explained his whole thoughts on the movie. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because ever since he explained his thoughts on this movie, I mean, granted, this was probably a week or two after seeing it or something. He's explained it to me, and it was so compelling that I thought to myself, wow, I really need to go back and watch that and see if everything he just said tracks, if it really pans out that way. And I never have since then, up until today. And it's interesting that in these, just minutes ago, Gil said, that he feels like he was very off or whatever about his take on the movie, because I was now watching it this time with that lens. I was watching it looking for some of the stuff he had kind of talked about. And I just sort of thought like, wow, this is just great. And I don't know, I don't really want to get too into it other than to say, I really want to hear what you've really changed your mind about, I guess.
Change your mind about what? Do you mean the movie?
Yeah, well, or I want, based on what you said before and what you feel now, I really want to hear what you have to say about your whole take on this movie now. Because for the last couple of years in my head, it has lived in a space that is very much influenced, I should say, by your take on this movie, by your description of it and your analysis, I guess, from years ago.
Yeah,
So
no, we should definitely get into that. Should we quickly do filmography / rating for Arrival?
oh,
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Denny's entire filmography.
Whatever you've seen, yeah, but where would you place Arrival as far as recommending it and how good it is or not?
Okay, well, I have only seen Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival, and Blade Runner, I think. Let me see. Let me look at what Enemy is. No, I did not see Enemy. I remember the trailers for this, though, but I probably should see it. So just out of those four, I love all. I very much appreciate all four of those films. I feel like Prisoners had potential to be like one of the best movies of the year kind of thing. And something about it doesn't really work for me. And I've never taken the time to really pin down exactly what it is. It's a very good looking movie and the acting's fantastic. I don't know what's bothers me about it, but I would probably put that at number 4, like the least, just because it just, as much as I liked it, I definitely didn't love it. Sicario is great. It's significantly better than I expected it to be. It has some weird technical issues, dumb things that shouldn't be in the movie really. But let me see here. I guess I'd go Blade Runner, Arrival, Sicario, Prisoners. So kind of the opposite. I guess in my mind, he's getting better and better and better and better, and will continue to get better once Dune comes out and it's like the best movie of the decade.
Yeah.
I hate to agree with Jason, but that's my exact same list.
So you're saying, wait, so which one's Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner?
Well, Blade Runner first, Arrival second, then Sicario, then Prisoners.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I might be mixing it up a bit. Blade Runner, even though, and maybe someday we'll do that episode comparing the two Blade Runners.
I hope so.
Blade Runner was really, again, good filmmaking moment to moment. Just not sure if there's much more to it. But as far as creating a world and creating an atmosphere, that nailed it. And I think it nailed it better than the original, if that's even possible.
Agree.
So that would have to be. And then Arrival and Sicario, to me, Sicario also, I'm amazed at how much I liked it, even though I don't like drug movies, it's not my shtick, but you really see that it's like a movie that should just be a silly action movie about drugs, but he completely elevates it.
It's so much more somehow.
Sorry?
Well,
yeah, so I'll say like Sicario, Arrival, and Prisoners is basically an example of how a really good filmmaker can elevate a script or a subject matter more than it should, or at least like not cause it to. Because Prisoners could have been, even Roger Deakins said, like the only reason why he did Prisoners is because of Denis, because he saw his other movies, his earlier movies, and he knew that he was going to have some interesting different angle on it. Because otherwise, the script is like a kidnapping story. It's not. There's nothing. You have to really have the right angle on it. And then Enemy. Yeah, go ahead.
I said I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay. And then Enemy. I did see Enemy. I guess I was the only one. I was curious because he kind of admitted that it wasn't really a successful experiment. He was making this like small sci-fi movie. It's by the same author that wrote the Blindness, I think.
okay.
Yeah, it's like a famous author. I think like South American author. I'm not sure. Jose Saramago. Saramago. In any case, it's good. It's pretty good. It's almost like a really great, as if an amazing film student made a feature film. Like that's what Enemy is. It almost feels like a student film because it's so like it's all shot in apartments but it's very like lo-fi, but just really good like moment to moment. It's just that it's yeah, maybe the tone is a bit weird and it's very obscure in the end, but yeah, and I should definitely we should definitely go back and see. I mean, there's Ansendi, I think that was one of his earlier work that was apparently it's a very good movie, and so it's I definitely want to go and check out some of his earlier stuff,
Me too.
but yeah,
Yeah.
for me it's almost like Blade Runner. He took the next step, but then yeah, Arrival and Sicario are better than Prisoners, and then it's Prisoners and Enemy. I have a soft spot for Enemy. I kind of like those small sci-fi movies with interesting concepts, like a double thing, like Jake Gyllenhaal finds out there's another Jake Gyllenhaal in Toronto, and they're basically, have
Yeah.
this whole dance of like trying to figure each other out.
Uh,
So I'm almost on the fence. I almost think like Enemies, uh, like is fourth, and then Prisoners fifth. In any case, yeah. And as far as rating it, I would probably give it a 7. Like it's definitely an 8. Like it should be an 8 or a 9 type of movie, Arrival. But because of what we'll get into in the second half, and the issue I have with this movie and then some other movies of the same kind, I have to deduct it a point, basically. So that's why I would give it a 7.
I think I'm more of a 7.5 to an 8 on this. I guess I'll just go with 7.5. Again, it's just so rare to get like pure science fiction anymore and have it done well. And this is pure science fiction done well. So it will always have a special place in my heart.
As I was kind of alluding to earlier, I mean, going into this conversation and having just kind of watched this movie, I sort of feel like in a perfect world, I would have watched this a couple days ago and had some time to like kind of digest it a little bit. But I mean, my feelings right now, gut instinct would be to give it like an 8. But I'm more than happy to hear what you have to say about it and change my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. Great. So let's get into the spoilers. Matt, I would be interested because you probably have you always had the same reaction and impression of the movie as far as the twist towards the end, or um,
I I think so. Yeah, that you're under the impression that the beginning of the movie is Amy Adams. Sorry, what's the name of the character? Yeah,
Luis.
Luis's past, but really, what you're doing is looking into her future, and her engagement with her engaging with the aliens gives her a window into her future. She knows that she's going to give birth to a daughter, and that her daughter is going to become sick and die, but she's embracing that future and that she's going to live it out uh, as she's supposed to live it out rather than trying to change it.
and that was always your reaction to it. Like you never had any other interpretation.
Um, I'm not going to say that I never, you know, that my brain never threw a different idea out there. It's just that's the one that I keep coming back to.
Yeah, no,
Um,
and mhm. I think that's the overwhelming interpretation of the movie for sure.
I mean, just quoting the movie, Louise said, despite knowing the journey and where it leads, I embrace it and I welcome every moment of it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I
What
didn't
about
I
you,
didn't
Jason?
deliver that. I'm just saying I didn't deliver that line as well as Amy Adams did.
Yeah,
But
as to be expected.
we're not expecting you to.
Yeah.
But Jason, I know you mentioned about like your interest in like my thinking, but when you first watched it, did you also have a similar reaction or?
I don't remember. Like I said, for so many years, I don't know if you guys have ever had this happen. I mean, I don't know, but this was just one of those situations where I watched the movie, I just sort of let it all go in my head, and I was like, wow, I was just kind of experiencing it. And then I think the first person I really sat down and talked to about it was you, and you explained this whole thing, and I was like, oh yeah, that's probably it. Yep, most likely. And then I never really gave it much thought again, except for in that context. So that's just sort of what I accepted. And when I say that, I mean what Gil was probably about to say. But yeah, I don't remember really my initial thought coming out of it because I can't really. I don't know. It's been years now. I
It's
think
all that
maybe,
mixed in together
possibly,
in your mind.
yeah, possibly, maybe yeah, you incepted me. That's what it is. No. Um, I think that there's a chance I just sort of was thinking about it in a very linear way, a very human way, and not a very septipod way. And I just kind of took the story as it's presented in front of me and didn't give it nearly enough thought. But anyway, proceed.
Yeah, no, so my initial reaction to it, and it's mostly because like the movie says, I'm a dumb human and I see things too linearly. But my impression of it when I first watched it, because of the sequencing of events, is that in the beginning of the movie, like she has a daughter that died from cancer or some terminal illness, but then she meets the aliens, and then she meets Jeremy Renner, and she decides like, and you see like, and this is the problem I have with this movie and many other movies like it. It's manipulating the audience to create the twist, and I don't appreciate that because it goes from a flashback about her losing a child and it cuts to she's all alone. She looks kind of depressed. She's going to school. She's got like this quiet personality about her. And it's a bit in the Hitchcockian manipulation of editing where it's sequenced to seem as if her negative depressed mood is because she's lost a child. And she's also unmarried, um, and there's all these like things that like deceive the audience to think like, oh yeah, so the kid was in the past, because this is all built up so later on they can fuck with us and say like, we got you. It was actually in the future. She was just depressed before she had a kid, and it was just like a trick. But basically, when you're seeing it, you're like, she's depressed because she's lost her child, and but this encounter with the aliens and then meeting Jeremy Renner, she decides to give it another go at having another child. Because what's the worst thing when you lose a child is often making that hard choice is, am I going to set myself up for heartbreak again if I try to have a second child? And she goes for it. But this time, she's communicated with the aliens, so she has the ability to see into the future. And lo and behold, this second future child is also doomed to die of cancer, but she makes the choice, even knowing that she is going to have that second child and she's going to spend all that time with her and have and give her the best life possible. So it's basically someone choosing twice to live with the consequences of what life brings. It's sort of like, in a way, it's an anti-abortion. If you think about the concept there, like if she knows that this child is going to suffer from cancer and going to die in her early teens, maybe the more humane thing is to abort it or not have it. But there's something beautiful about a story where you lose a child, you have an encounter with aliens that give you the ability to see the future, it reinforces your your vitality of life, and you say like, oh wow, I want to bring another child to this world. Only then you find out that that child is doomed to die as well, which is a freak thing, but who knows, that happens. I mean, people have 2 3 mentally challenged kids in a row, or they might have 2 3 kids that could have cancers. Like my grandmother, 2 of her kids out of 9 had different types of cancer. So that stuff happens. So even though it's a freak thing, to me that just blossomed as this beautiful story that the movie was telling. Only to then, once I read some articles online and everything, is like, oh wait, oh no, no, it was a trick. It was like a twist. It was all just the future, and they lied to us in the beginning, and they excuse it by saying that the beginning is not the beginning. The beginning is, because the voiceover there kind of sets that up as a possibility that beginning of stories are not always the beginning. They're sometimes the end, or vice versa. So in any case, yes, that was my take on it initially, and then watching it a second time, I totally get it. I know that the movie that I had in my mind is not as good as this movie. So I've accepted that. I know that most audiences would just say like, that's impossible. 2 kids with cancers in a row, I don't buy that shit. So I understand why the movie that's actually presented and perceived by most as the better movie. I just thought that like my understanding of it was kind of cool if you could make it work somehow.
Yeah. Uh, now I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, I think pretty much. Well, I won't say from the get go. My impression was that the beginning of the movie was actually the future, because that would be lying. And I don't think anybody watching the movie would see the beginning of the movie and think, oh yeah, this might not be happening in the past. you know I get where you're coming from. I don't There is an argument that it's kind of a lying to the audience kind of thing, but I mean, what the hell do we do as filmmakers? We lie. We either lie intentionally or we lie by omitting certain facts. That's all we ever do is lie. That's kind of the joy of art and entertainment is you lie until you're telling the truth. But
Yeah, but I mean, I'll give an example.
yeah,
Um, Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this, and you're nuts if you haven't. But like things like other movies that are similar to this one, which I despise to some degree, and are also considered really good movies, are like Fight Club and The Sixth Sense. Like those are 2 movies where there's like a twist ending that doesn't make too much sense. Like there's too much acrobatics that happen in the movie in order for that twist to sort of work. I need to revisit Fight
yeah,
Club. I think I have, and it still didn't work for me. But that one might actually work better than The Sixth Sense, because The Sixth Sense, there's literally scenes where Bruce Willis sits across from the
like
kid's
his wife.
mom.
Yeah,
What? And
from his
they're
wife.
not talking.
Yeah,
There's the wife scene. Well, the wife scene is almost plausible because like
The
she's
wife
not.
scene works because he walks into it.
He walks into it and
yeah,
she's not, because she's angry with him, so she's not looking at him.
And not
But come
talking
on,
to him.
he sits with the mom and they don't talk. And you know that that scene is there for the audience to perceive that there's a discussion going on, but there's no discussion actually happening. So there's all these like things setting up that, oh, it is plausible that Bruce Willis is not a ghost and can actually communicate with the living. But really, because there's all these scenes plotted where it's presumed by the audience that he is communicating. And also,
Well,
yeah. So, anyways, it's just one example of many in these movies where it's deceitful. Like you could have pulled the twist in The Sixth Sense or Fight Club or even Arrival without that manipulation. It might have still worked. I might be wrong. I can give examples of movies that have done it more successfully without being manipulative, but that's just to illustrate the type
Well,
of
I
movie
was just
that.
gonna
Yeah.
just to chime in on what you're saying, because I totally get what you mean, and it can be frustrating, especially when it's not done as well as it should have been or whatever. And while I do like both of those movies that you brought up as examples, I would have to say that Fight Club definitely does it a lot better. And if for no other reason, because they gave themselves a really good tool to explain a lot of it, which is the insomnia aspect. If at some point in The Sixth Sense, maybe they would have been tipping their hand a little bit. I don't know. I feel like if at some point, along with all the other things that Bruce Willis is struggling to do with and to reach this kid and so on and so forth, along with all that drama, if they had somehow just said a little something about how he was experiencing some weird you know issues lately with keeping track of things and stuff like that, then maybe that would have worked. Because if you think about it, like with Fight Club, right? If there had been an identical scene in Fight Club where Edward Norton starts a scene sitting across from somebody, right? Think about his character, right? If suddenly he just realizes that he's in a room and is suddenly conscious because he talks about suffering badly from insomnia, and he's suddenly in a social situation, he's not going to suddenly go, "What the hell's going on?" He's going to play it off. You know, he's going to be alarmed, but he's going to just keep his mouth shut and look around and try to figure out what's going on until he does know what's going on, and then just go. So if there had been a scene like that in Fight Club, it would have worked. In The Sixth Sense, it's kind of a ham sandwich.
Yeah, I think there's if you go back and watch Fight Club, there's a few scenes there where you think, oh, there is a bit of an issue. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is that in scenes where they're both there with other people, only one of them speaks. I know there's a few scenes with Helena, where like one is having sex with her, and then she comes out of the bedroom, and then the other one's in the living room or the kitchen, um, and they have like some sort of interaction or something.
Well,
Uh,
they explain that one because in his inner monologue he says, "Sometimes I'm me, sometimes I'm you, sometimes I picture you having conversations with other people."
yeah, no, I'm saying that was I was giving an example of a good way that
Yeah.
they yeah that they
Yeah.
made it seem so. It's definitely better than The Sixth Sense as far as like the moment to moment. But I still feel like you watch that whole movie, and there's got to be scenes there where it doesn't compute too much that
Yeah, it's
that they're
probably
not.
not perfect.
So the thing is, like, what I'm thinking about here is that Arrival didn't even really strike me as being that kind of a twist ending. It wasn't played the same way as, The Sixth Sense or Fight Club, in that it wasn't really played as like an oh shit moment. I mean, like, that it was the climax of the movie where she realizes, wow, they've actually given me like a window into the future. And so I'm going to tell this Chinese guy, I got to call this Chinese guy up and tell him his wife's dying words. And that's what's going to prevent all these different countries from like trying to bomb these aliens, and so on and so forth. But I don't think it was really played as a twist. I think they tipped their hat too early for it to be intended to be a twist. It was really early on where they started talking about the aliens maybe having a non-linear conception of time. So I don't really think that it's that relevant of a comparison to Fight Club or The Sixth Sense because it wasn't meant to be like, oh shit, by the way, they can see into the future now. It was actually kind of speckled in there throughout the movie, and it just happened to be at the climax when Amy Adams was able to kind of put two and two together and realize, all right, this is what I have to do to actually fix the problem. So I guess that's just my take.
Yeah, but I mean, the movie, I agree, it's different for sure, but it's still a twist moment, even if it's not an ending.
I kind of agree with both of you.
Yeah, no, but basically, the way it's presented is that it's flashbacks. You only find out that it's a flash forward at a certain moment in the movie. I think it's like the last third, because once she realizes that, I think that's what also opens up her ability to more fully be able to see into the future and whatnot. And not to mention that this movie also has the whole issue of time travel in general, where how could she like go into the future if the general won't even be there, if if there's no trust or blah blah blah. So there's something there, like it's kind of weird, like with the whole how she gets the information about the
Yeah.
general's wife. But that's a time travel thing, and I slightly forgive that because all time travel movies have that issue.
I mean, specifically with this, it's like determinism versus free will. Like there is actually that question immediately of okay, well, you embrace the future and what it's going to and welcome every moment of it. So, well, what if you say that you don't? Does that just change everything?
Yeah,
like
there's that too, as far as like her
so.
decision. Yeah.
I mean, you both know that I'm a hard determinist, so that's my take. But that's for a different. That's probably for an entirely different podcast.
Nobody's going to want to listen to that podcast. Trust me.
Yeah, it all depends on context, I'm sure.
Right.
But yeah, but that's what I think. It's tough because it's basically the whole movie is the conceit there is it's a trickery. Like the entire time you are meant to believe that these are flashbacks and that they have some sort of relevance to the present, because one time she pulls out a piece of
Yeah.
information, or at least what was it, like something happens and then she can tell her in the flashback or flash forward, she tells her kid like what's the award for something because she was asking
Zero
her.
sum.
Zero sum.
Or
Yeah,
non-zero sum game.
Non-zero sum game.
Yeah, which is exactly I mean, and that was the moment when that was her practicing her ability to learn something in the present and pass it on to the future.
Yeah, that was also where the movie went full free market capitalist.
Yeah. But in any
Well,
case,
I don't know if this is going to make sense, but I'm going to attempt to kind of say this. I agree with Gil in that there's a little bit of a twist nature to it, but I don't think it's fair comparing it to Fight Club and The Sixth Sense, because I don't know if this is really what Matt was saying, but I kind of look at it this way. Like, so if you guys watch those, there's tons of YouTube videos about them. You see these people doing this stuff like in big cities and touristy areas and stuff, but these people will like paint certain like pictures and stuff, and it looks like they're just painting a bunch of weird colors and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden they'll like do something, like throw something on the painting at the very end, or they'll flip it upside down or something, and it reveals that it all along it was this crazy thing. Or they'll flip it around and you're looking at the inverse of the picture or something. You've seen those things?
Which ones?
Yeah.
There's like artists that make their living by doing these quick, like 2-minute paintings, and it looks like kind of a mess of colors and shapes and stuff until the very last moment when they do something. Like they'll either flip the canvas upside down, they'll flip it around, they'll toss a new thing of paint onto the very end or something, or water, or there's all these gimmicks. but there, where the very end, what it was, at one point kind of a garbled mess, suddenly becomes a very obvious picture of something.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Anyway, my point is that's what I kind of view this as in a weird sort of way. Is like, I almost feel like Matt makes a really good point that so early on, the movie is being honest enough with you that it's really showing you this is we're kind of going with this whole circular thing, and the aliens view things this way, and they're more advanced than us because of it, or they're better than us because of it somehow. They're really, really trying to push you in the direction of where it's going. So at the very end, I mean, there's no question that Gil's right. In the first 20, 30 minutes of the movie, they're showing you these images. The only way that they make any sense is for you to believe that they're flashbacks, because that's how the movie is being set up. And they do that intentionally. So there is some misleading going on, but I feel that enough of the rest of the movie is steering you in the direction of where it's going that you kind of are like ready for this reveal. And it's less of a twist and more of a reveal. That's how I feel, if that makes any sense. It's almost like watching a guy do that kind of street art stuff where you already know you're waiting for it, and it's just at that moment where he flips the canvas upside down and you see somebody's portrait all of a sudden, and you're like, oh, wow, that's what I was waiting for all this time, kind of thing. And I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of my thought.
That makes perfect sense to me. And I mean, again, I'm not refuting anything that Gil said about kind of being lied to at the beginning of the movie. And I think I said fairly emphatically that, lying is kind of the business that we're in. But again, I think it's how it's handled. It's all about how it's handled. The Sixth Sense isn't the Sixth Sense unless you have that, okay, the Sixth Sense really relied on pulling the rug out from underneath the audience. Yeah. And I think that's what the Sixth Sense did. And to an extent, I also think that that's what Fight Club did. I don't think that Arrival pulled the rug out from underneath the audience. I think that Arrival kind of set you up, just like what you were saying. Like, okay, I don't know for sure what I'm looking at, and then you're going to maybe it's just the difference between pulling the rug out from underneath somebody and just flipping a script on somebody. And I think Arrival was more of a script flip than it was pulling the rug out from under the audience.
Yes, and I think I'll say Fight Club, I think, is in that same category. I definitely have. I also looked at my ratings and I see that I gave The Sixth Sense 6, which is appropriate. And I gave Fight Club and Arrival 7. But I do think that the moment-to-moment, scene-to-scene are more valuable and more well done in an Arrival and
by comparison to what?
And Fight Club compared to The Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah.
Well,
it
is more of a reveal than a twist, because Fincher is not a twist guy, and Denis is not a twist guy. Shyamalan is definitely, and The Sixth Sense is the mother of all twists as far as his movies are concerned. So yeah, no, there's definitely a different type of thing. It's just that I felt like in all those three movies, unfortunately, especially in the case of Fight Club and Arrival, there's a level of manipulation that's necessary in order to have that reveal, because this is not super common. You say that like filmmakers lie all the time. Do they? Like how many examples of similar type of manipulation can you think of? It's not very, very common.
I think that Matt was not referring to like manipulating the story in that way. maybe maliciously or whatever. I think he was more referring just like how storytelling is done in general.
Yeah, no, because
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
there is one example. There's a movie called The Others. I don't know if you remember that one. Or if you've
Yeah,
seen it.
it's the superior movie to The Sixth Sense.
Yeah, exactly. And big spoiler, if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't listen to this. But that's a twist movie that I won't even say what the twist is because people should see it. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's like one of the greatest twists ever. And even though it's a supernatural like movie, it totally works. It's an amazing twist, and there's nothing wrong with the logic there, even though it's a supernatural story. Unlike The Sixth Sense, there's no cop out. There's no scenes that set you up to be manipulated. And I can give other examples of movies that there's like a reveal in the end, and you say, "Oh, that was like what it was all along." I can't think of them right this second, but they're more in the category of The Others versus a rival Fight Club in The Sixth Sense. I just think that there's more of those, but
Yeah, well,
it,
I mean, maybe we should do an episode on The Others, but
yeah,
uh,
The
but
Others comparing to The Sixth Sense. It's
yeah,
like a
but
Ooh.
I mean, Jason's right that it wasn't really like when I was talking about that we all are lying all the time. It's not about manipulating the audience. I mean, it's just like I mean, it's like what Picasso said: art is a lie that forces us to see the truth. We are always lying all the time. That is our job. It's to lie and to entertain, but to tell the truth in a different way. So,
Yeah, no, I know what you meant. I know you
yeah,
weren't meaning that we lie all the time as filmmakers, but
right.
one example I thought of, Psycho. Psycho has like a big twist ending, but there's nothing
Yeah.
about it. There's no, even though there's manipulation saying that there's a mother somewhere, but we never see her. We never see her move. We never see that she's alive. That's why the twist in the end works. We
Well, the
give the
shower scene.
the shower scene with the yeah, but that's basically because he took on the persona of the mother,
Yeah.
yeah, which makes perfect sense, like psychologically, from any point of view, like it makes perfect sense. Yeah, there's no manipulation there, like you buy that as a psychological situation, unlike Bruce Willis like sitting with the mother and like not having a conversation, but it's just feeding the audience bullshit. So later on, they can say like, "Well, but this happened, and that's why you should be like tricked," you know.
Well, incidentally, and forgive me if this is too much of a digression, but the shower scene in Psycho, in large part, the way that it works is that Norman Bates was in silhouette.
Yeah.
So you couldn't actually see that he was just like in drag or whatever the politically correct thing is to say nowadays.
Is
But
drag not politically correct anymore?
I have no freaking idea. So,
I gotta be careful what I say.
but
To all my dozens and dozens of drag queen friends.
yeah, but just drawing Arrival into this. Look, I love Bradford Young, but also to anybody watching this, he does like to underexpose the holy hell out of his movies. So don't watch this when the sun is up. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I guess
uh,
that's a dark one.
yeah, he goes dark. He goes really dark. And again, like this isn't me trying to attack Bradford Young. I think that he's a very talented cinematographer. It's just an observation that almost 90% of the time, the faces in the movie are like two stops under.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Matt's 2 cents of cinematography in this episode. We should have like a segment of like Matt's. Here's Matt's rant on the cinematography in this movie.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this just goes without saying, but I feel like the stuff at the beginning of the movie is included there so that the movie itself can work as a palindrome, just like the
Yeah.
daughter's name, and just like the virtually every aspect of the language of the septopods, and just everything about them and what they represent, and so on and so forth, which kind of works, I guess. But yeah.
It just didn't need to summarize it. I feel like it could have just, all it needed is to not cut directly to her and showing her living a lonely life, and she's kind of seems sad. Or is the whole Hitchcock editing trick is like she's actually not sad, but you think she's sad because you just saw her child die of cancer. It's an editing trick, but
Yeah.
all that they could have done there is have the series of flash forwards, flashbacks, and not cut to her. Cut to something else. Like just don't play off the whole thing that we perceive that she's a lonely university instructor who's might be slightly down in her mood, because then it creates the impression that, oh, we're meant to feel this way to solidify that what we just saw was a flashback and not
So,
anything
Gil,
else.
correct me if I'm wrong. You are essentially saying that the problem with Arrival is the same problem with Saving Private Ryan.
In what way? That's an interesting take.
No, I'm just pointing out that that's what people always say about that movie, is that the biggest issue with it is that they use that weird bookend thing of the old man at the cemetery with his family, and because he's there crying at the grave, and then it cuts it cuts away from him.
Oh, because we don't know who it is. If it's
And
Matt Damon or
it cuts to,
Captain Miller.
well, to Spielberg's credit, it doesn't immediately cut to Captain Miller,
Well,
but it
it's a
does.
dissolve into. It is a direct dissolve into Captain Miller.
No. Watch it again. It dissolves into like the boat, and then it immediately cuts to Captain Miller. So like there is like like about half a second, but people say, well, that's not enough, and it isn't enough because everyone thought the same thing. Everyone thought that was Tom Hanks.
Yeah, if they had just showed Amy Adams just being a normal university professor, I would buy that. Like, she doesn't need to be depressed. Maybe it's been years since her daughter died, and those flashbacks are like years in the past. There's no reason for her to be depressed or be looking down or being quiet in her demeanor. If they just played her off more normally, I get that that's her personality for the character in general, but if she had felt a bit more natural, then it wouldn't feel as manipulative. That's all. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to watch it again. Just that the way it cuts from the. And also, when I first had the issue with the movie, I had a recollection that there's more flash forwards throughout the movie and before she meets the aliens. And then when I saw it the second time, I was like, oh no, it's really just one in the beginning, and there's really nothing up until she meets the aliens. That's why this works. Like, I really thought that there's flashbacks in between, and I'm like, well, that doesn't work because she can't have flashbacks until she meets the aliens, which is either in the beginning, which is from the or when she meets them. Because if they spray it all throughout before she meets them, then it definitely doesn't work. Because she can't have the flash forwards till she has that ability. In any case, it works. Like I watched it a second time. It works. It's a really good movie, moment to moment. I don't have too many complaints. I just think that much like the others or Psycho, it would be in a higher pantheon of movies for me if it was able to just skirt that issue slightly better than it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And the funny thing is just, and the reality of the entire podcast is just, if it's a movie that gets us talking for more than an hour, it's probably worth watching. I doubt that we're going to actually have an episode in the near future where we're just going to completely shit on something.
Well, depends on our
But
choices of what we decide to talk about.
Well, if you want to do the next episode on funny games, I will gladly
That
shit
might
on
be an
that movie
interesting
for
one.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, but I think
Or
that makes a
North.
good point that like we can
Yeah,
talk
or
about
North.
almost
Yeah,
any movie.
yeah,
Any movie could be spoken about for like an
yeah.
hour. That's easily. By the way, I just
Right.
wanted to make a comment that I'm pretty happy with myself about my ratings. Like, cause I just checked Psycho and the others, and I ranked both nines. So I was like, oh, cool. I'm consistent in my thinking. I'm not a complete like hypocrite.
Just
Well,
throwing this out there, not to harp too much on this other movie, but in my opinion, The Others is a movie that achieved that goal much better. But at moment to moment, I don't find it nearly as compelling as other movies. I mean, I don't know. I've said this before. I mean, I think that the problem with M. Night Shyamalan's films is his writing. He needs to get other people's scripts and like just direct horror films, and he would be fantastic probably, because it just seems like he definitely has a grasp on how to move pieces around on the screen and create incredible amounts of tension, even elicit fear from the audience and stuff like that. It's just, I think that, like we've all said many times, you're driving home from the movie theater and you're like, well, that doesn't really work sometimes, like half of his movies or something, or maybe a lot more now. But anyway, yeah, so I would say that The Sixth Sense, for instance, because it's a great thing to compare to the others, it's a movie that has a lot of great moments, and it works in a lot of ways like that. But yeah, it's overall very flawed. Whereas the others, like you said, it's everything about what they were trying to achieve worked. But I don't know if I would say, if I would put it as highly as you did, just because at the end of the day, I don't think it's nearly as like it's just not a phenomenal movie to me. It's just very well done.
yeah, no, I can't explain it, and I guess we don't have to go too deep into it, but in case we do talk about it
Maybe in a
someday.
future episode.
Yeah, but mostly it was just very satisfying on all
Mm.
levels, and I do think it's very good suspense moment to moment. It was one of those not really horror movies, but presented as a horror movie. I don't like horror movies, but a suspense horror type of thing that just it's scary and it's got like really good suspense as you go, and then the twist in the end is, oh my God,
It's really
that's
good.
just genius. It's just like
Yep.
perfect. Like it just can't get any better than that. It's one of the best, aside from Psycho, it's one of the best twists ever. Not that that would make automatically a movie be one of the best ever, but it's just really satisfying.
Well, I think if
Um,
any movie excels to be to the point of being of exhibiting one of the greatest whatever, because there's hundreds of facets that make up what a movie is. If one movie excelled so much at one thing, even if the rest of the movie was pretty bad, it would certainly still be worth mentioning.
yeah, well, I mean, it's the whole like the Russian arc is like one shot, but
I
aside
don't
from
know
that,
why that's exactly what went into my head right
yeah, it's like
there.
yeah, it's one shot, but it's still like a crap movie. I mean, like it's
It looks nice.
it looks nice, but no, but yeah. I mean, there's examples like that. There's like movies that do something very well, but other than that, they're kind of like a mess. The others is not a mess, and for that matter, Arrival is not a mess. I think it's a good movie. I definitely think I liked it better the second time, and I mostly forgive it. It's still it's imperfect, but most movies are, so it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
totally fine.
I just wanted to throw out there something that really stood out to me was I think they used the exact same score at the beginning and the end of the film, if I'm not mistaken. But it's so perfect, that bit of music. Um, the the like climax of the film happens, and then you kind of get some resolution, and you kind of get her little thing, and it just sort of ends, and the title of the film comes up like as if it would at the beginning, which is so perfect for this concept. and then that bit of music just kind of, I hate to keep using the same word, or the same term, but just sort of washes over you. I mean, I was just like laying in this big beanbag chair of mine, and it was like I was just like, wow. You know, I mean, it's the second time I'm seeing the movie. It's not like anything really, really surprised me, but I was just like, wow, this movie works.
Yeah,